Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have another show for you today on the road here in Copenhagen, Denmark. First, Judge Hippler tosses the gag order in the Brian Kohberger quadruple murder case with a wink to free speech. 3 words and a Google search unmask a poison plot. 4 words, a clever woman's scream that saved her life during a terrifying abduction by a stranger. Another guy was just having a bad day. This day in legal history. The quote of the day has to deal with the justice system and how, well, although it's supposed to be blind, a few bucks here and there can obviously sway everything. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. As I mentioned in the intro, we are still on the road, so we still bring you Crime Talk. We spent the day in Copenhagen, Denmark. It was fabulous. Got a little sun walking around, taking the tour. Oof. Let me tell you, it was a busy day. But let's get to the docket. But before we do that, let me remind you to go to crimetalksearch.com. Sign up for that background subscription service today. When you do, you'll be able to do as many background searches as you desire on anyone in the United States. You're going to find out phone numbers, emails, social media presence. You're going to find out if they have bankruptcies. Do they own property? Do they have judgments against them? Are they married? Are they divorced? Do they have a criminal history? And are they on a sex offender registry? Everything you want to know when somebody is coming into your life. Go check them out. All right, let's go ahead and get to the docket today for Thursday, July 17th, 2025. Yes, Judge Hippler tossed the gag order in the Brian Kohberger case. So let's get this straight. The cat's out of the bag, or rather the gag's off the case. So on Thursday, Judge Hippler gave a hearty wave goodbye to a sweeping gag order in the Brian Kohberger quadruple murder saga, freeing tongues to wag about the gruesome 2022 stabbing deaths of the 4 Idaho students. Now, Kohberger, who dodged a date with the death penalty by pleading guilty earlier this month, admitted to turning a cozy off-campus rental into a horror scene. And with no trial on the horizon, a posse of news outlets, including the Associated Press, rode into court demanding the gag order be sent to the gallows. Judge Hippler, perched in the 4th District courtroom, agreed, tipping his hat in favor of the First Amendment. He said, "The public's right to know is the belle of this ball," he declared, noting that the original goal of keeping jurors impartial was now as relevant as a flip phone in 2025. The jury's not coming, so the gag orders got to go. Now, Kohberger's defense team, however, wasn't exactly popping champagne. They fretted that lifting the order would unleash a media circus, potentially mucking up the sentencing process. Judge Hippler, unfazed, shrugged and said, "The media is already in a frenzy. Might as well let the clowns keep juggling." He clarified that lifting the order doesn't force anyone to spill the beans, so the defense can still play coy if they choose to do so. Meanwhile, the media coalition, not content with just ungagging the case, pushed to unseal a treasure trove of court documents, and Hippler, ever the cautious cowboy, promised to sift through the papers, but warned, "Hold your horses. This will wait until sentencing is done." For those needing a refresher, Kohberger confessed to slipping into the victim's home through a sliding door, turning a quiet night into a nightmare. Prosecutors painted him as a criminal mastermind, using his Washington State University criminal justice studies to play hide and seek with evidence. Spoiler alert, though, we all know he got caught. And obviously the sentencing is coming up as well. We'll see. The prosecution has already said, and everybody associated with the police have stated, that they will not talk to anyone until after sentencing, which is fine. But after sentencing, guess what? We can get the discovery in the case, ladies and gentlemen. And that will show, once we get the discovery, that will show how gruesome these murders actually were. Next on the docket, 3 words and a Google search that unmasked a poison plot. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, picture this: a Colorado dentist, a suspicious package, and an office manager with a nose for trouble. Kaylin Romero, the sharp-eyed sleuth of Summerbrook Dental, dropped a bombshell at Dr. James Craig's murder trial that had jaws dropping faster than a bad tooth extraction. The charge? Poisoning his wife of 23 years. Angela with a side of potassium cyanide delivered right to the office. Talk about a cavity in his moral compass. Anyway, Romero, rocking a red blazer and a sparky black flats, strutted past a teary-eyed Craig in court to spill the tea. It all started with a mysterious package labeled Jim Craig Personal, arrived with strict orders. Don't open it. Naturally, this raises Romero's eyebrows higher than a dental drill. Craig, 47, had been shadier than a back alley root canal, claiming his wife was under the weather after slurping one of his protein shakes. Too much protein, he mused, as if Angela's dizziness and weakness were just a post-workout oopsie. Prosecutors, however, paint a darker picture. Craig, allegedly smitten with a mistress and prowling sugar daddy websites with a self-proclaimed $10 million net worth, wanted out of his marriage. His solution? Swap Angela's med for poison to shake off the trapped, hopeless, helpless vibes of matrimony. Pretty subtle, wasn't it? Anyway, the plot thickened on March 6th of 2023 when Craig showed up late to the office morning's huddle, muttering about Angela's sudden illness. Later, he was caught lurking in a dark exam room, working on a computer like a villain in a B-movie thriller. Romero, ever the diligent manager, got a text message from Craig that screamed red flag. A personal package was en route, and she was to plop it on his desk. No peeking. Never happened before, she noted, probably wondering if it was a new dental tool or, say, I don't know, a murder weapon. By March 13th, the package arrived, and a curious front desk staffer couldn't resist a peek. Inside, a foil packet with biohazard stickers and an invoice screaming potassium cyanide. Romero, trying to play it cool, Googled the stuff and, surprised, Angela's symptoms matched cyanide poisoning like a perfectly fitted crown. Still, she held her tongue, not quite ready to accuse her boss of being a real-life Dr. Evil. Angela, a mother of 6, wasn't getting better. Craig kept dropping ominous hints about her not making it through the night, which finally pushed Romero to sound the alarms. On March 15th, as Angela was readmitted to the hospital, Romero spilled the cyanide beans to a superior who looped in the dental partner's wife and eventually the cops. Meanwhile, an ER nurse testified that Angela's vitals tanked on March 12th, with Craig in the room as alarms blared. She was declared brain dead on March 15th and taken off life support 3 days later. Craig, now wiping crocodile tears in court, pled not guilty to first-degree murder and other charges tied to his jailhouse antics post-arrest. But with Romero's testimony, a Google search, and those 3 chilling words, "Don't open it," the dentist chair is looking more like an electric one. Of course, we don't have the death penalty, but you know what I mean. Anyway, stay tuned for the next episode of Dental Disasters. Next on the docket, 4 words a clever woman screamed that saved her life during a terrifying abduction by a stranger. That's right, take a look at this footage. Captured the moments a woman was abducted by a stranger only for her quick thinking actions to save her from his clutches. Now, surveillance video from June 29th shows Michael Tunador trying to force the woman into a pickup truck in St. Augustine, Florida, after he robbed the store that she works at. Now, the woman, who has not been named, had reportedly tried to stop Tunador from leaving the smoke shop with stolen items, including a jar of THC cigarettes and a vape worth about $270. Now, Tunador grabbed her by the neck as she stood in the doorframe to block his exit and dragged her towards his truck before attempting to push her inside. But the woman screamed, "Get off me, get off me, get off me, help!" and fought to free herself from his grip, getting away long enough to make a run for it and catch someone's attention. The victim in this situation did everything right. Scream, yell, fight, attack, attract attention, according to the sheriff. And as she struggled with the would-be kidnapper, the woman's screams alerted Kelly Eason, who was nearby, and came to her rescue. He grabbed her again and tried to get her back in the truck. And I believe because she wouldn't quit fighting, I was there screaming to get off. Eason then called the police as Tunador abandoned the kidnapping attempt and got into his car and fled. Now, a 911 caller advised a male subject was attempting to force a female inside of a vehicle outside of the parking lot. Deputies learned that the male suspect committed a robbery inside the business, then forcefully removed a female employee from the store and dragged her outside, where she began to push her where he began to push her into the car. The victim fought her attacker and attracted the attention of a nearby person who came to her aid. Police later found Tunador driving recklessly about 10 miles from the store and arrested him. He was reportedly driving a car that was stolen from a dealership in Jacksonville, Florida. And guess what? Tunador has been charged with kidnapping, robbery, driving under the influence, and grand theft auto. Now, experts say that people should create a distraction to alert others to deter other would-be abductors. They also advise people resist the attacker by any means possible, including kicking and screaming. I've said this before, ladies and gentlemen. I've represented a lot of criminals over the last 30 years, and what's the one thing they do? They look for weak people. They look for people that they think will not make a scene or cause any problem. Do the complete opposite. Trust me. Next, he was just having a bad day. Didn't we have this story yesterday? Well, guess what? We've got another one. A Las Vegas man who was just having a bad day and couldn't control his temper gunned down a neighbor for blocking part of his driveway, landing him in prison for the next 21 years to life. Please meet Robert Salon. He was just having a bad day. Well, he was convicted earlier this year for the October 2022 murder of Christopher Dice Allen after entering an Alford plea to charges of first-degree murder and attempted murder, according to court records. Now, an Alford plea is not an admission of guilt. Yes, it is, but a concession that the prosecution has enough evidence for a conviction of trial. It still means that you're pleading guilty, and as a matter of fact and as a matter of law, you are guilty at that point. Well, the victim's mother showed up for sentencing and joined the prosecutors in calling Salone out Tuesday as he was handed at least 2 decades to serve behind bars for killing his neighbor and for another parking-related shooting the year before. His mother brought it to the court's attention that he had no right because he was having a bad day and couldn't control his damn temper. So today, I've had enough, blasted Allen's mother, Catherine Carter, while speaking to the court. I can't speak of justice because for me, justice would be getting my son back, and now that's not even possible. Salone told the court that, he was remorseful and he was really sorry for the attack, insisting, it wasn't planned and, hey, I was just having a bad day. Next, this day in legal history, on July 7th, 1825, the United States signed the Treaty of Prairie de Chien with Native American tribes, including the Dakota and the Sauk, to establish tribal boundaries and reduce conflicts, facilitating settler expansions, but obviously leading to legal disputes over land rights. And then on July 17th, 1865, Mary Surratt, convicted for her role in the conspiracy to assassinate President Abraham Lincoln, was executed, becoming the first woman executed by the federal government. Well, she did conspire to kill a president. Next, on July 17th, 1926, Myers versus United States, the Supreme Court ruled that the president holds exclusive power to remove certain executive officers, reinforcing executive branch autonomy. As we saw just in the last couple of days, the president can fire just about anybody he wants that works in his administration. And then on July 17th, 1950, a federal judge mandated the desegregation of all St. Louis municipal swimming pools, local civil rights milestone. Then on July 17th, 1973, United States and Mexico signed the Artifacts Treaty, which was an agreement for returning stolen cultural heritage. It turned out to be an important legal framework for cultural property law. Our legal quote, justice is blind, but the scales are often tipped by wealth and power. If anyone thought otherwise, well, that'd be pretty naive now, wouldn't it? And finally, our dumb criminal of the day. With no defense at hand, a man has pled guilty to an obscenity charge for pleasuring himself inside a storage shed for sale at a Lowe's in Louisiana. Now, George Calavas copped to the felony charge, returning to district court this past Monday. Now, Calavas was locked up on a $15,000 bail after his May 11th arrest at the Lowe's outlet in Slidell, which is apparently a city in St. Hamary Parish. He was released from custody following his July 14th guilty plea. Now, as detailed in the police report, police responded to the home improvement store upon receiving a 911 call from a store manager about a male subject naked inside a shed for sale in the Lowe's parking lot. Now, during a canvass of the storage shed, officers discovered Mr. Calavas lying in a supine position on the floor of the shed beneath the window. Calavas's pants and underwear were at his ankles, and he was using his left hand to touch his exposed genitals. Completing the picture, that's right, the officers noted that there was an open tub of Vaseline petroleum jelly to the immediate left of Calavas's person. Calavas was watching an unknown video on his cell phone, and he had headphones on in his ears. After being handcuffed and read his rights, Calavas advised that he had been, quote, jacking off inside the enclosure, one of the several sheds Lowe's has on display for sale. Now, while customers are free to browse these sheds, guess what? Calavas has no reasonable expectation of privacy inside that subject shed. Game over. Keep it to yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go in public to do those types of things. All right, that's all we have for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. And remember, Constitution matters.